Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Summer podcast, and this is episode 44 of my side quest. Now, the time I'm recording this episode, it's the morning after Gervonta Davis's fight against Roach. Now, it was a close fight. It was a competitive fight. I'm going to talk about that fight. I'm going to talk about the co-main as well, and I'm probably going to talk about Manel Kape's win in the main event of Fight Night, whatever number it is, 102, I think it is. So yeah, let's kick it off with the co-main event of the Gervonta Davis v Lamont Roach card, and that was Gary Antoine Russell beating Jose Valenzuela for the WBA super lightweight title. Now, Gary Antoine Russell is brother. I'm assuming he's the brother of Gary Russell, and Gary Russell's a tremendous fighter. Gary Antoine Russell's proving himself to be a very impressive fighter as well. I was really, really impressed with what I saw against Jose Venezuela. He was putting his punches together so nicely and just landing cleanly at will. Honestly, it was a type of performance that you watch and you're like, wow, this guy's really just putting it on him. And he was applying the pressure, landing his cross at will, snapping the guy's head back, really putting his punch together beautifully at times. So well-deserved win there. He didn't get the stoppage. It was a unanimous decision victory. But from the scorecards and from what I've seen of the fight, it was pretty dominant for Gary Russell. And he dominated most of the fight and sort of dictated the pace. And like I said, landed cleanly at will. So yeah, we'll go on to the Gervonta Davis fight. So there's a bit of controversy around this fight. Despite Gervonta Davis, I think, starting the fight pretty well and showing a lot of the stuffs that you'd expect to see from Gervonta Davis. He was landing good body shots early and was initiating a lot of the early exchanges. But throughout the fight, Roach showed little respect for Gervonta Davis's power and was willing to take the risk and stand in the pocket and counter, which not many guys are willing to take that risk because majority of the time we've seen Gervonta Davis's career, if you stand in the pocket with him, you're probably going to get knocked out. Lamont Roach was taking these shots really well and like I said, had the confidence to stand in the pocket and be willing to counter Gervonta Davis, and he was doing that brilliantly. We even saw late in the fight, Gervonta Davis, he took a knee, which we hadn't seen. We've never seen that before from him. But overall, Lamont Roach was landing clean counters often and applied pressure on Gervonta Davis and even rocked him at one point. Had his legs buckle. We didn't drop him or anything, but he was keeping Gervonta Davis very honest in that fight. And in my opinion, I think a lot of the early rounds would have gone to tank with Lamont's counterpunch approach paying dividends in the later rounds. My immediate reaction to this fight was that Roach had done enough to edge the victory. In my opinion, I think his work later on in the fight, the cleanliness, of the punches and the counters as well. I probably would have edged him to get the result. But even with Gervonta Davis taking a knee, I don't think a draw is a robbery. If I'm being honest, I think it was a competitive fight, and Gervonta Davis definitely had his moments. I think people will be sort of looking on him like this was an awful performance. Not at all. Gervonta Davis was there. He was standing in the pocket. Okay, defensively he wasn't amazing, and he was getting clipped a lot. But Gervonta Davis has always sort of been like that. He's always, but typically in his career, you've not had guys with the confidence to stand and trade with him. Most of the guys that stand and trade with him get knocked out. So it's not like Gervonta Davis is brilliantly defensively anyway. He never really has been. He's had moments, but overall he's not. He's no Floyd Mayweather. He's 30-0, 28 knockouts. Like, he's a serious operator, serious power at this weight class, but he's no defensive masterclass. So if you face someone who up until now he hasn't really been able to face someone who can take the punches, to be honest. Even the guys who he's beat by decision aren't guys that have really been able to take his power, and Gervonta Davis has kind of steamrolled these guys. I mean, guys have had moments against Gervonta Davis. He's not some untouchable phenom. Guys have had moments against him, but throughout his entire career, up until probably this fight, he's been able to weather the storm and sort of win those 12-round fights. I'm imagining they'll have to do a rematch for this. There's no way they'll just go from this to a Gervonta Davis Shakur Stevenson fight. There's no way. I'd be very surprised if they did. But it would be a big money fight. I mean, Gervonta Davis v Shakur is a huge money fight, but that being said, both guys are relatively young, so Gervonta Davis could afford to run it back with Lamont Roach as long as he can win that fight. If he can win that fight and then go into fight Shakur, that would be ideal. But there's no guarantee in a rematch that Lamont doesn't beat Gervonta Davis. Because, like I said, this was a close draw, not an easy result. For either man, both men were having trouble at points in this fight. Lamont Roach was definitely firming those shots from Gervonta Davis, but they were landing. And you could see at the end of the fight, there was bruising and some redness on Lamont Roach's face. That's because he was in a war, not a war, but dude was getting hit by Gervonta Davis, who's at this lower weight class is the hardest hitter, apart from Naoya Inoue. Outside of Naoya Inoue, at these lower weight classes, Gervonta's the biggest puncher. And you could tell he was in there with someone who can seriously punch in Lamont Roach. So I think probably an immediate rematch. I'm assuming, sort of a Bivol Beterbiev sort of thing where they have like a rematch. That being said, rematches are very rarely the same as the first fight. So I would sort of be counting on Gervonta Davis to kind of make the adjustments necessary to find Lamont Roach's chin cleanly more and eventually get a knockout. But you never know how a fighter rebounds from these sorts of decisions. Even like it was a draw, but even say Gervonta Davis won like a close split decision, these are still the sort of performances that sometimes in your career, to be fair, he didn't get knocked out. He did get rocked and he did go to a knee, but he didn't get knocked out. But these are sometimes the type of performances that are struggle to come back from, and at times you never see guys come back from. Top of my head is I'm thinking of, and to be fair, the circumstances definitely aren't the same at all. But I'm thinking of Roy Jones when he fought Antonio Tarver, and Tarver was a good. He's a decent boxer, nothing amazing, but a very good boxer, and Roy Jones actually won the first fight, but it was a close decision, and then got smoked in the second. It could be a sort of similar thing here, but I don't think Gervonta Davis is as past his prime as Roy Jones was at that point. And Roy Jones has had a crazy weight cut because he was fighting at heavyweight before that, goes back down to like heavyweight. He had a crazy weight cut, I'd imagine. Gervonta Davis hasn't really had that, so I'm kind of banking on Gervonta Davis sort of making the right adjustments in a rematch. So I would probably be picking Gervonta Davis for a rematch and then see Gervonta Davis go on to face Shakur Stevenson in the fight after. But yeah, that's it from me, guys. Actually, no, that's not it from me at all. We're going to talk about the Manel Kape fight. So Manel Kape fought a guy in the UFC Fight Night main event. I no idea who the guy is. Couldn't even say his name. I just seen the finish or the last couple rounds or so, and Manel Kape looked pretty good for the most part. The finish was a really nice finish, was mixing up to the body, into the head really well, applying the pressure. It's the sort of fighting we love to see. Now, in Manel Kape's last performance, I felt it was the exact same. He was a guy, but not the same in terms of performance, but the same in terms of winning in a really entertaining fashion where you're going to get a lot of fans of those sorts of performances, right? Obviously, his last fight was against whoever the hell and was a really good and entertaining performance. He was, dancing, taunting the guy, beating him up. It was really fun. And this fight, from what I saw, was probably a touch less dancing, but a lot more punching and kicking and kneeing. At one point, even had the dude literally running away from him. Manel Kape was just running after him, ducking him down, throwing those punches, landing those punches. Was a really good performance from Manel Kape, and I hope he's getting paid well to main event those UFC Fight Night cards. I hope he's getting a nice, chunky payday with that one. But yeah, I mean, one more win from Manel Kape, and even after this win, he could probably get a title shot because there's literally no one from Pantoja to face in the current division, unless you're looking at guys outside of the division, which, in my opinion, they should be. They should be looking at Pantoja v Marab, a Pantoja v Figueiredo, a Pantoja. I mean, Cejudo's lost his last three, but it's getting to a point where a Pantoja v Cejudo is one of the bigger fights that Pantoja could have at that point, even though Cejudo's lost his last three fights. So it'll be see what the UFC's got in store for Manel Kape and what they've got in store for the UFC Flyweight division, but only time will tell. And that's been it from me. I've been Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast. It's been another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, episode 44, and I'm out. Peace.